What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, and today on the show, we'll be talking about The Monkey. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, drop in and leave us a good review wherever you get your podcast. Really helps get the show out there to a lot more people, and I really appreciate it. So today on the show, of course, I'm talking about The Monkey, which released in theaters this past weekend, and it's up there as one of my most anticipated movies of the year. If you haven't already seen that video, I released a couple weeks ago. Check that out. I talk about all the movies I'm excited for throughout this year, and The Monkey is up there as one of the top ones, mainly due to the fact that Oz Perkins is the director of this one. He's the one that directed the hit Long Legs from last year, which I did a review of as well. Really enjoyed that movie. I actually need to go back and rewatch that again here soon. And he also directed The Black Coat's Daughter, which came out a couple years back, which I enjoyed. Not as much as Long Legs or even this movie, but I enjoyed it. But one of the main reasons I'm excited about Osgood Perkins or Oz Perkins directing this movie is because throughout, his short, directing career, all of his movies don't really feel the same. They all have different kind of atmospheres and different styles to them. Like The Black Coat's Daughter is way different from Long Legs, and Long Legs is vastly different than either Black Coat's Daughter or The Monkey. I would say The Monkey is his most different movie out of all of them so far, just because of the kind of the comedic edge that it has to it. This movie is a horror comedy at heart. You kind of get the impression that it has some comedic elements in the trailer whenever you initially watch it, but I really wasn't prepared for how funny this movie was going to be, and definitely does have some dark humor in there. And I found myself laughing way more than I thought throughout this movie. And at certain times, I felt kind of weird for laughing because nobody else in the theater was laughing at certain parts. Maybe it's just my kind of warped sense of humor at this point, but this movie was pretty damn funny at certain points. And I really appreciate the humor that Oz Perkins puts into this movie, because there's some kind of, I wouldn't say heavy subject matter, but some family issues that you deal with throughout the movie. And that comedic edge really lightens the tone throughout the whole movie and brings a lot of comedic moments to the many various deaths that you get throughout this movie. Because for those who don't know or haven't seen the trailers for this movie is called The Monkey for a reason. It revolves around this monkey. I don't want to call it toy because you're not supposed to call it a toy, but for lack of a better term, it's a monkey toy that is, when you're in the possession of it, if you wind it up, it starts playing this music. And as soon as the music stops and it hits its drum, somebody dies from a freak accident. Either somebody close to the monkey or, very different, ranges. It can be somebody far away or someone really close. This monkey is the root cause of all these deaths that are happening across this movie. And they all happen through a variety of different ways. And they definitely get very creative with it, and that's one of some of the most entertaining aspects, because it's not like there's a couple deaths here and there throughout the movie. There's deaths throughout this whole movie. They keep getting more entertaining one after another, and for a person that really enjoys kind of like the weird out there, ways of killing people in these different horror movies, I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and the way they kind of insert different comedic elements into some of these kills are amazing. Just some of the comedic timing in some of these things is fantastic. And I would definitely like to see more of this, going forward with Oz Perkins, whether he makes another horror comedy or what. I would just like to see kind of that humor kind of sprinkled throughout his movies going forward, because I think he has a sharp wit to him. He has a decent comedic element to his storytelling and the way that he writes these little jokes. But other than the monkey itself, which is causing all these deaths throughout the movie, you follow the character of Hal, played by Theo James. And I don't really know too much about Theo James. I haven't seen him or anything. I've looked him up and I don't really recognize anything that he was in. But one dude has a hell of a voice. This dude can narrate the hell out of a movie or out of a book. I mean, this dude's voice is like butter, man. But you follow his character of Hal throughout the whole movie, and it ranges from him being a kid, where he first comes into contact with this monkey, up until where he's an adult, where he has to really deal with what's happening with this monkey and all these deaths that are happening. Now, I'm really not going to go into spoilers with this review, just because I think the best way to go into this movie is knowing nothing at all. And I mean, even watching the trailer alone, I don't think it's going to spoil too much for you. It hints at some of the deaths, but it really doesn't show you the outcome of them or exactly what happens, because even the deaths that they kind of allude to in the trailer, it goes way further with it in the movie. And that's some of the best parts of the movie, are some of these outrageous kills that happen. And you really want to be surprised going into this. But the real kind of basic bare bones plot, other than just the monkey wound up and ends up killing people, is you follow Hal whenever he's a kid. His dad is as an airline pilot who's going to all these different places, and whenever he comes back, he ends up bringing them gifts. And one of these gifts is a monkey. Now, they don't really find out about this monkey until their dad is gone. And whenever they're going through all this stuff, Hal and his brother end up coming across this monkey. And of course, whenever they wind it up, some crazy things start happening. And the more things start happening, the more they start figuring things out. And they decide, yeah, we need to really find a way to get rid of this monkey and get rid of it for good. And things go well for a while. And by a while, I mean like 20 years later or some shit. And Hal's an adult now. And of course, the monkey is back. Deaths start happening again, and Hal's got to figure out exactly where this monkey is, who's using the monkey to kill all these people, and exactly what's happening. And that's really the bare bones plot without getting into too many spoilers. You do get a couple of cameos in here, some that I really enjoyed, but the main attraction of this movie, I would say, are the outrageous kills that this monkey ends up afflicting upon all these random people. And in between those kills, you really get to find out who Hal is as a person. You find out why he is the way he is because he grew up with an asshole brother. Hal, the brother you follow, he's kind of a doormat. He lets people walk all over him. He needs to stand up for himself. And maybe if he would have stood up to his brother when he was a kid, you wouldn't have had all these issues. But in between, the dealing with the monkey and all the kills in between, it really kind of dives in on the family aspect of it. These brothers kind of dealing with their relationship and dealing with their father leaving when they were a kid. And their mother in the movie is played by Tatiana Maslany, who is pretty damn good in the movie. She has some interesting parts that kind of makes you think there's something beneath the surface. It's a little darker for her, but I mean, it just could be she's just messed up from, having her husband just up and leave her all of a sudden and having to raise two kids on her own and everything like that. So, I mean, you have a huge complicated family relationship within this movie. And that's not only present whenever they're kids, but whenever Hal and his brother are adults as well. They're also going through family issues. Hal has his own son who he's not really connected with. He's not really close to. And the family drama works better whenever they're kids and they have their mom and, dealing with the dad leaving. And then, of course, the monkey and all that. I don't think the drama with Hal and his son works nearly as well throughout the rest of the movie because of the pacing with the movie, because you're constantly going back and forth with these deaths and dealing with the twin brother and all that. But also because of the comedic aspect as well. I would say, even though as much as I love the comedic element of this movie and the comedy to it, I think it kind of takes away from some of the drama that they're trying to insert throughout the movie as well, particularly with Hal and his son. And it doesn't ruin the movie by any means. I had a great time with this movie. I would just say that the drama with Hal and his son kind of falls flat towards the end of the movie, and it doesn't really have a huge payoff either by the end of it. And that's probably one of my biggest, I wouldn't say complaints, but kind of a nitpick, is that the ending of the movie, even though I'm not going to go into it because of spoilers and whatnot, there really isn't a huge payoff by the end of it. I think they could have went a lot further with it at the end. That way you would have been like, oh my God, where are they going to go from here? And I don't think the payoff is really worth it as far as the drama is concerned between Hal and his son. Now, the monkey itself, I think there's more payoff with that than there is between the family drama. And I think there's a lot of room to continue this story. I don't know whether you continue with Hal or with different characters, who knows? I think there's a lot of room to continue the monkey as sequels or, or spin-offs or something, because it's just a singular like monkey toy. I know you're not supposed to call it a toy, but singular monkey toy. Anybody could get their hands on this thing. I mean, you could have it, set way earlier, in the timeline before, Hal's dad even gets a hold of it. You can make so many movies just regarding this monkey and just having all these crazy happenings, going on around it. Whether they will do that, I don't know. Osgood Perkins doesn't strike me as the dude to just, create sequels. I feel like he's a guy that wants to just create something original with each movie. Even though this movie was based off of a Stephen King book, Osgood Perkins wrote and directed it. He made it his own thing. So I think he's going to want to do something original going forward with his next movie. I think he already has his next one or two movies planned already, and they're not a sequel to The Monkey. So I'm not sure if the studio is going to want to do any more sequels and just bring on new directors to make them. And I'm not usually one to be like, yeah, we need more sequels, because a lot of movies are just best left alone, standalone movies. But The Monkey is actually something I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel for, because you can really do so many different things with it and set it in so many different time periods. I think it would be pretty interesting. I'm not saying you need like 8 sequels or 10 sequels, but maybe like 1 or 2 would be pretty interesting just to see like what would happen in different time periods. You could have it set in like the 60s or 70s, or you can even have it set, after this movie or something like that. I think there's a lot of potential with the monkey as far as sequels or spin-offs are concerned. Whether we will get that, I don't know. I don't think Osgood Perkins would be attached with that other than like a producer credit or anything. I don't see him coming back to direct a sequel for this. But I mean, I'm talking about it being very funny and have the drama in there. But I mean, deep down, it is a horror movie. I mean, at a certain point, I mean, there's plenty of deaths in this movie. There's horror elements in there. I'm not going to say it's scary by any means. It's not a very scary movie. Like I mentioned, it's pretty funny. It's way funnier than it is scary. But there are certain moments where it's like they utilize some of that, the sharp, dramatic, stinger music with like the strings and stuff that kind of gives you goosebumps. Just hearing that kind of stuff, even outside of a horror movie, if I'm listening to a soundtrack or something, kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit. Has certain elements in there, specifically the one moment where it just hard cuts to the monkey like zoomed in on its face, and it's just playing that, the horror stinger music with the strings and everything. And it kind of gave me chills a little bit. I'm not saying it's scary by any means, but they definitely try to insert those horror elements in there at certain points, just to kind of that way it's not more of a comedy than it is a horror. But I love the blend that Oz Perkins really created with this. It's a perfect blend of comedy, horror, and drama. Even though the drama I think could have been built on a little bit further, I think the comedy and the horror aspects of it kind of really, amplify this to greater heights. And what I mean by that is it's just a great movie. I had a lot of fun with this one. I highly recommend going to check this out. This is going to be one of my shorter reviews just because I don't really want to go too far into detail with certain things or the deaths or the story itself. Just because it's a lot of fun just to kind of figure out on your own and to experience your own in the theaters or whenever it comes out on Blu-ray or digital. Kills are great in it. Has some great cinematography and some really good shots, creative shots in there. The acting in it is pretty good. You have some good cameos as well. The music in it is pretty decent. Now, normally I do like a buy it, rent it, or miss it. In this case, since it's in theaters, it's a go see it, rent it, or miss it. I'm gonna say go to see this in theaters because this is a highly recommend movie. I absolutely really liked it. I actually can't wait to watch it again and show my fiance because she didn't get to go see it with me. I highly recommend this movie. It's a great time. I think a lot of people will have a lot of fun with it. Also, I'm really looking forward to what Oz Perkins has cook up next because I enjoyed Black Coat's Daughter. I really enjoyed Longlegs, and I really enjoyed The Monkey. So who knows what he has cooking up next in that crazy brain of his, but I will 100% be there opening weekend for it. And as long as he's doing horror, I will always be there because this dude just seems like he has a knack for creating interesting horror, stories and interesting horror tales and interesting set pieces and introducing certain elements that make them different from, his previous movies. And everything seems different than what he's done previously. And honestly, that's what makes him such an entertaining director is because he has a certain style, but he brings something different, interesting into each movie that he makes. So I'll 100% be there for his next movie. For those who have seen The Monkey, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. And for those who haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. I highly recommend it. It was a reason that it was up there as one of my most anticipated movies. And even though I had a lot of hype behind the movie itself, it definitely didn't disappoint after leaving the theater. So I highly recommend this one. Definitely go check it out. That is the show for this week. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, drop in, leave us a good review wherever you get your podcast. Really helps us get the show out there to a lot more people. And I'll see everybody next time.